Politics, commentary, entertainment, sports, news, and opinion now. Here is Steve Malzberg.
All right, folks, welcome to the road to the White House. And today we focus on the possible candidacy of Governor Mike Huckabee, who, of course, ran in 2008. And before we introduce our guest to help us analyze the situation, let's watch this.
My plan to secure the border, 2 words: Chuck Norris.
Mike Huckabee wants to put the IRS out of business.
When Chuck Norris does a push-up, he isn't lifting himself up. He's pushing the earth down.
Mike's a principled, authentic conservative.
Chuck Norris doesn't endorse. He tells America how it's going to be.
All right, that was back in 2008, and joining us now is Kellyanne Conway, Republican advisor and president and CEO of the polling company. It is so good to see you.
It's my pleasure,
Thanks
Steve.
for coming
Thanks for
in. My hands are cold because, as you can tell, it's cold in here. All right, so that was 08. Let's start at maybe the end. Do you think the governor will give up his lucrative TV success and throw his hat in the ring?
Well, that's a magical question. I believe if Governor Huckabee did throw his hat in the ring, he would be an instant frontrunner. He is beloved in places like Iowa, where he won in 2008, yeah. Based in part on ads like that, but also just on his grassroots appeal and his authenticity, which voters really value. They valued it in 2008 before Barack Obama was president. Boy, do they really value authenticity and sincerity now. The other thing that Governor Huckabee adds, every man has to match his moment. And I think there's one big issue right now that really is a sweet spot for many of these evangelical voters in Iowa and early primary and caucus voters elsewhere. And that is that people believe their religious liberties are under assault. So whether it's abortion or marriage, those are the more specific issues. But just as a broader umbrella, Steve, the entire religious freedom, and that's really one of Governor Huckabee's.
I was just going to say,
cards.
that's his strength. That's the people that he motivates more so than anybody else. And I love him. I mean, I know him to a certain extent. I've talked to him many, many times, and I think he's great. I love the fact that he's not afraid to say, as so many Republicans are, especially when it comes to social issues, what he believes, and he puts it out there. And if you don't like it, don't vote for me. He doesn't try to walk that fine little line.
Right. Well, you walk that fine little line, and you end up, if you straddle the 2 lines, you somehow end up in the abyss often enough. But what you saw in 2008 is what you would get in 2016 also. And I think that sets Governor Huckabee apart from some others who have been around that long. You have some fresh faces. I mean, I think the breadth of a robust and diverse Republican Party is putting forth frontrunners like Rand Paul and Mike Huckabee. The Democratic Party has no such diversity of thought. The argument there in the party right now is between the hard left and the hard left.
Right.
So at least in this regard, you see the breadth. And in Governor Huckabee's case, consistency is seen as principle, is not seen as stodginess or intractability. It is seen as principle, and I think that's incredibly valuable to voters.
Let's put up, we have the Real Clear Politics average right now, and this is as of June of this year. We got it up on the screen, and there you see Rand Paul 13.8, Jeb Bush 12.8, and Mike Huckabee 12.7. It's all, very, very close.
Right.
And this is, from a man who, he's a TV show host right now. He's not a politician, and he doesn't say that he's running. And then we have the head-to-head with Hillary Clinton right now, which I think is very interesting. 49 to 42 when it comes down to women. Of course, Hillary 54-38. Men, Mike Huckabee in this poll, which was a PPP poll in March of this year, he actually has a 3-point lead over Hillary with 11 undecided. Does he look at any of these numbers? Does he have his own internal polling going now? Is that something that helps him make that kind of commitment and that kind of decision?
Well, everybody looks at the public polls, and I can't imagine that he, as politically savvy as he is, the Governor Huckabee wouldn't be looking at the same thing. The question is, what does it mean to him?
What are these numbers, preliminary and early as they are, and maybe insignificant as they are, what do they say to you?
They're not insignificant to me. As a professional
Yeah.
pollster, what they mean to me is that Hillary Clinton is going to have a very hard time being the next president of the United States. It's in part why I've thought and said publicly for a year now I don't think she'll run in the end. And when you see that she is only leading, which she's kept under 50% and is only leading a little bit outside the margin of error over people like Governor Huckabee, it shows that if people are given contrast in candidates, then the contrast really benefits the person who's not the Democrat. Why? If you have a Republican nominee who acts just a little bit different than the Democrat, then really the choice is between vanilla and French vanilla or honey vanilla. And so voters are going to say, well, I don't care, I'll stick with the vanilla. And so if you have somebody who's so different than Mrs. Clinton, as is Governor Huckabee, on the issues with his experience, and he would also clean her clock in their home state of Arkansas.
I was going to say Arkansas, yeah, two folks from Arkansas.
So, and you know, he also is somebody, frankly, who looks like he seems like Governor Huckabee seems like somebody who can run effectively against a female candidate, and not make it seem like he's being derogatory.
Although he was
polite.
taken to task for some comments he made, just off the top of my head, it seems to ring a bell. Not too long ago, he did say something about women, which
at
was
the RNC meeting,
which was very true. What he was saying, I believe, as I remember it from afar and interpreted it at the time, it's just that the media, and that's another thing. I think that's why so many Republicans are afraid to run as Republicans, because they know the media is going to eat them up. But if you allow that to dictate your campaign, you're going to wind up like John McCain, like Bob Dole, and like Mitt Romney.
Mitt Romney, all of whom, by the way, we were told could win. He can win. This electability that has just suffocated the Republican Party really needs to be upended by fresh blood or somebody who's outside of the Republican mainstream. Why? Because we're told that electability is the currency. He can win. Did they? Did Bob Dole win? Did John McCain win? Did Mitt Romney? He can win. Well, how do you know that? They're high in the polls. How do they get so high in the polls? Everybody thinks they can win. They're saying they're going to vote for them. Plus, they're raising money. How are they raising money? They're high in the polls. Everybody writes them a check. So it becomes very circular and very illogical. The Democratic Party, Steve, never feels such compunction. What do? They hire people who are told, not only told you can't win, but you don't have a shot. They laugh them off the stage. Jimmy Carter, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton himself. We have 20 years of Democratic presidents based on these Democratic nominees not listening to people say you can't win. In the Republican Party, if I tell you you can't win, you go hunker down in the corner, you say you're right, I'll wait my turn. And so you just really need somebody who's unafraid to lose. That's the key. Ronald Reagan proved that winners are people who are willing to lose.
And I think well, let me ask you, what did Mike Huckabee prove in 2008? He won the Iowa caucuses. I have it right here. He won it quite significantly over Romney, and he did fairly well in certain on Super Tuesday. What happened? Why did he not progress? Why was Mitt Romney able to become the eventual nominee?
Well, one word is Florida. Florida was problematic in the end, and the other word is money. You run out of money. And in Iowa, caucuses are different than primaries, and winner-take-all primaries are how Mitt Romney eventually took over Newt Gingrich in 2012. And why Rick Santorum left the winner.
I said Mitt Romney, I was
John
thinking
McCain.
of McCain, yeah.
But Romney was in there too. Romney had to have been in there to be the nominee in 2012 because the Republicans always nominate the person who lost before. So you were onto something. But caucuses are very different. Caucuses are how people like Mike Huckabee and in 2008 Barack Obama are able to prevail, and Rick Santorum in 2012. Why? Because you can take your case directly to the people. You're motivating people to go and sit in the bowels of a church or a school in the dead of winter, in the dead of night for hours on end because they're so committed to you, they want to be there. And so if you can organize them in the Iowa caucus, that's different. But what attracts the Iowa caucus goer is very different from what attracts the primary voter in New Hampshire and then down to South Carolina and Florida and then to Super Tuesday a little bit longer.
Well, let me ask you about the female vote. We alluded to it in a head-to-head matchup with Hillary in the early poll here. But as an evangelical, will he have a harder time, in your view, attracting that female vote, especially if it's against Hillary or an Elizabeth Warren, a female, or not so much so, more so than any other Republican candidate?
Well, it sounds like these questions are about the general election.
Yeah,
so let me get out of Iowa right now.
Yeah.
Let me fly out of Des Moines now and back into general election reality. It's not that him being an evangelical or a person of faith is off-putting to most of American women. It's when people of faith sound sanctimonious or judgmental or holier than thou. That's off-putting to women who could be of faith themselves or not of faith. They just look at it as not the way they treat other people. And so it really comes down to delivery. It comes down to tone.
Even Republican women in the primaries.
Republican women particularly, yes, absolutely. Yeah. And the fact is, in Mike Huckabee's case, he could say, I was a preacher. I'm a Christian, and so I believe life begins at conception, ends at natural death. And it sort of softens it for people because it explains why you hold this view. And I think he's better than most at explaining why he's pro-life or how he developed his views on traditional marriage and why they've kept the same. Why he thinks judges are a big problem in this society, and people, I would hope, follow suit. Why he believes religious liberties are under attack. And he's a pretty affable messenger. I think right out there right now, you've got Mike Huckabee, the former governor of Arkansas. You've got Mike Pence, the governor of Indiana. Those are two of our more affable messengers right now. And people want, conservatives who don't look like they're in a bad mood about it.
Well, Pence had a TV show, and Huckabee has a TV show. Does let me start finish where I started. Does he run? You got about 10 seconds.
Huckabee?
Yeah.
I still think it's less than 50%, but this would be his last shot. So he may be in. And I should mention to your viewers too that Governor Huckabee does a trip to Israel every year. He's done it for many years, and it's and he's an incredibly pro-Israel
Absolutely, very
Christian.
important
I think
now.
that's important as well.
Kellyanne Conway, thank you very
My
much.
pleasure, thank you.
Tomorrow on the road to the White House, it's going to be who we take a look at. Senator Rand Paul. Right now, Gimme 5 is next.